Long sandy beaches, turquoise blue water, farmland, big cities, vast swamps, high mountains, and a diverse underwater world. Hardly any other vacation destination is as diverse as Australia. No wonder the country has been in the top 10 most popular travel destinations for years. The best way to explore these diverse regions is to stay for a longer period of time. Simone Strobel and her boyfriend took extra time for this and spent several months backpacking through the most beautiful parts of Australia. It seemed like the perfect vacation before the serious side of life was to begin back in Germany. But that was never to be. Simone died on vacation. She was murdered. But what really happened on the night of her death? Simone Strobel was born in 1980 in tranquil Würzburg. She loved her hometown and had built a life there. She had completed her training as a teacher and wanted to start working in this field soon. But first, she wanted to take the opportunity to enjoy her youth, travel, and explore new countries. Her boyfriend Tobias was to accompany her. The two had been a couple for 6 years, which was quite a long time considering their young age. Tobias himself was a sports student and 1 year younger than Simone. In 2004, the two put their long-forged plans into action. They had obtained a working holiday visa and wanted to spend the next year exploring Australia and traveling through the country as backpackers. Simone was 24 years old at the time. One day in August, Tobias and Simone carried their heavy backpacks to the car to make their way to the airport. Simone's mother found it difficult to say goodbye. She had never been separated from her daughter for so long. "Please bring Simone back to me," she said to Tobias as they said goodbye. "I promise," replied the 23-year-old with slightly longer blonde hair. Tobias and Simone's trip seemed to be a complete success. The weeks passed as the two explored numerous cities, lay on the beach, and made friends with the locals. Everything was just as they had dreamed it would be, or perhaps even better. They even enjoyed working on the cotton plantation, which financed most of their stay. This gave them the chance to earn money while marveling at the impressive natural surroundings. When a friend visited them there, she got the impression that their trip had strengthened Simone and Tobias's relationship, and that the two seemed very happy. Their initial doubts about whether everything would work out as planned had faded away somewhere between beach trips and road trips across the country. They spent most of their time sleeping in their van, which gave them flexibility and allowed them to change their location whenever they wanted. This was a privilege they didn't have in their everyday life in Germany. The months passed, and the young couple would have loved to stay in Australia much longer. Their families and friends would certainly have liked to swap places with them sometimes when they heard on the phone what Simone and Tobias had been up to in the past few days. Tobias's sister Katrin and her boyfriend Jens Martin were so enthusiastic that they wanted to visit the couple in January 2005 and travel with them for a month. Simone and Tobias were delighted. And on January 26th, 2005, the time had come. Katrin and Jens Martin joined the two of them, and from then on, the four of them lived on a campground in Lismore, a town in the far northeast of the state of New South Wales. Space was limited, so Simone and Tobias slept in the van, and Katrin and Jens Martin slept outside in a tent. Nevertheless, the following days were beautiful, and the four of them used the time to visit some national parks. Two weeks later, on February 10th, 2005, the mood among the four was somewhat tense. It had been raining continuously for the past few days, which meant that they had not been able to explore as much as they had planned and had been forced to spend most of their time in the van and at the campsite. Crammed together for several days, there had been a few arguments, so the group decided to visit a pub that evening to take their minds off things. Camera recordings confirmed the visit. The group then left the pub and made their way back to the campsite. The rest of the evening's events are based solely on the statements of Simone's companions. According to Tobias, Katrin, and Jens Martin, they arrived at their van around 11 p.m. There, they talked a little and drank some alcohol. Sometime later, an argument broke out between Tobias and his sister about family matters. Simone reacted very irritably and asked the two to put their argument aside so that they could enjoy their vacation. But apparently they didn't, because Simone then disappeared into the darkness without a jacket, money, or her papers, because she wanted to be left alone and have some peace and quiet. After the argument had subsided, the other three went after Simone and searched the entire campground for her, but without success. The darkness and the fact that everyone had been drinking alcohol made the search even more difficult. Ultimately, the three decided to go to sleep without Simone. When there was still no sign of her the next morning, they alerted the police at around 10:45 a.m. The group recounted the evening to the police as described above. Tobias, in particular, made a very concerned and distraught impression on the investigators. He assured them that there had been no argument between him and her, and added, "We have a very, very beautiful relationship. We're not just lovers, we're also really good friends. We've known each other for over 6 years. After our first date, it all quickly became like a story from a romantic movie." Nevertheless, the police did not immediately want to drop the theory that the two might have had an argument. Tobias also looked very upset during an interview, his hair hanging in strands across his face. Anything could have happened. She could have been kidnapped or raped. "I can't eat or sleep because I'm so worried. My stomach is in knots and I'm shaking all over. We were very close. And the police were wrong when they said we had had an argument. We didn't argue at all." Disappearing like this is completely out of character for Simone. She is a kindergarten teacher and a very responsible, very sensitive person. She is very friendly but cautious by nature and would never get into a stranger's car or leave with someone. I know she would contact me if she could. The police quickly realized that something must have happened to Simone. The 24-year-old had neither money nor her ID with her, and there was nowhere she could have gone. A large-scale search operation was launched. But when there was still no sign of Simone the next day, Tobias informed her parents. 3 days later, Simone's brother Alexander traveled to Australia to help search for his sister. The investigation still had not yielded any clues as to Simone's whereabouts. That changed on the morning of February 17th, when a woman's body was found just 90 meters from the campsite. Simone was found naked on a bocce court. Her body was virtually intact and had been covered with palm fronds. The autopsy and forensic evidence collected at the scene revealed that Simone had been suffocated, presumably with a pillow. There were no signs of other violence or abuse, but it was certain that Simone had been dead since the night of her disappearance. To get the body to the place where it was found, the perpetrator must have pushed it through a hole in a chain-link fence. This would have been difficult to do alone, so investigators quickly suspected that more than one person was involved in the killing. A single blonde hair was found on the chain-link fence, which most likely belonged to one of the perpetrators. Unfortunately, the hair no longer had a root, which made it impossible to identify the owner with the technology available at the time. Tobias, Katrin, Jens Martin, and Simone's brother held a small memorial service in Simone's honor. Tobias spoke about what a wonderful person Simone was. He said, "She was an angel on earth, and we cannot understand why Jesus took her from us. No one can answer that question, but everyone can now see her brightly shining star. The bloody, evil monster who did this to her must be brought to justice. He was also sad and angry that it had taken the police so long to find Simone, even though her body had been only a few meters away the whole time. Apparently, the police had used sniffer dogs for the first time on the day she was found. If they had done so earlier, Simone might have been found sooner. The small group and Simone's parents supported each other in any way they could over the following days and weeks. The families had always gotten along very well, and in this painful phase, they needed each other's support. However, Simone's companions avoided talking about her disappearance and their last evening together from the very beginning. Simone's family accepted this. After all, they had experienced something traumatic and probably did not want to be reminded of it. Meanwhile, the police had identified a first suspect. When they questioned the other campsite residents, some said that after Simone's disappearance, a man had boasted about killing the Nazi bitch. When they located the man, they noticed that he had changed his location on the campsite just one day after Simone's disappearance. He had moved to a spot with a clear view of the place where Simone's body was later found. But that wasn't all. The man was already wanted by the police. He was supposed to serve a prison sentence for domestic violence, but had gone into hiding shortly before his sentence was due to begin. It all sounded very promising. During questioning, however, he denied having anything to do with Simone's disappearance, and it was never possible to link him to it or convict him. But that was only a minor setback for the police. They had had their eye on another suspect for a long time: Tobias. During the investigators' extensive questioning, it emerged that the evening before Simone's disappearance could not have unfolded as her three companions had claimed. The staff at the pub the four had visited remembered the small group all too well. They had attracted attention because they were arguing loudly. Tobias, in particular, became abusive and loud. This led to the staff having to throw the four of them out at around 11 p.m. And even at the campsite, the argument did not seem to have subsided. Other campsite residents claimed that it was not only Catherine and Tobias who were arguing, as the group had stated, but all four of them. They said they had seen Simone at around 12:45 a.m. At 2 a.m., one of the residents claims to have heard a woman screaming. Further clues emerged when investigators found Tobias and Simone's diaries. Just one day before her disappearance, Simone wrote, "It rained all night. The morning was gray and dreary. When I asked Tobias to let Catherine and me into his van, he totally freaked out. There's been such a bad atmosphere between us since we've been in Australia. F*** you. We spent the whole rainy day apart. Catherine and I in the van and the others in the tent. Tobias didn't say a word all day. I was very surprised that he came to the van to sleep. But even then, not a word was spoken." Tobias had also written an entry in his diary on the same day. He wrote, "It wasn't a nice day. It was a shitty day. Simi got on my nerves first thing in the morning. I wasn't even awake yet. It's really getting to be too much. It can't go on like this. I hardly spoke to Simi, and she was very introverted. This affected the mood in our group, but it can't always be good to just stay in the group. Besides, it rained all day. So Jens and I hung out in the tent and the girls in the van. This day was stupid. On top of that, Katie seemed really weird to me. Totally strange. I can't figure her out." The morning before her disappearance, Simone wrote, "Today started as badly as yesterday ended." And Tobias wrote, "The mood is still down, and I don't even know what will happen in the next few days." Based on all these clues, Tobias, Katrin, and Jens Martin were questioned again. But to this day, they still don't talk about Simone's disappearance. Each of them hired a lawyer who made all the necessary statements. They themselves remained silent, not only in court, but also to Simone's family, who naturally confronted the three with the allegations. They broke off contact with Simone's relatives and remained silent. Simone's parents in particular were very angry and sad about this. In a newspaper interview, Simone's father said of Tobias, "How twisted must a person be to stand with us at the open grave and lie to us like that at the same time? He just used us." On July 10, 2007, a hearing is held in a court in Australia. Tobias, Katrin, and Jens Martin are not required to appear in person. Tobias and his sister do not appear at the hearing, stating that they never want to set foot in Australia again because so many bad things have happened there. Jens Martin agrees to testify. It would be the first and last time that one of the three broke their silence and commented on the allegations. Jens Martin explains that they had a very nice time in Australia and always got along well. But on February 9th, the day before Simone's disappearance, something happened between Tobias and Simone. He doesn't know what. He just noticed that the two were no longer talking to each other. On February 10th, another argument broke out between the two because Katrin and Simone wanted to sleep in the van due to heavy rain. Hoping to lighten the mood and distract themselves, they went to the pub in the evening. But even there, the argument continued. Back at the campsite, the situation escalated and Tobias repeatedly insulted Simone. Jens Martin said that he had never seen Tobias so angry. Simone eventually ran away into the night, angry and hurt. The next day, Tobias asked him and Katrin to claim that Katrin and he had argued and that they should not mention Simone in the argument. That is why they gave a different account of the evening's events. However, none of them had anything to do with Simone's death. And the public prosecutor's office must admit this. There was no evidence that the three of them had killed Simone. Therefore, the investigation against them will not be continued. In 2014, Australian author Virginia Peters published the book, Have You Seen Simone? The story of an unsolved murder in which she details Simone's disappearance. Most of my quotes from this video are taken from her book. However, Tobias sued Virginia for defamation. He lost this lawsuit in the Australian Supreme Court because there is reasonable suspicion that he killed his girlfriend and Virginia Peters only reported official information. The lawsuit also led to Tobias's apartment being searched. According to an Australian daily newspaper, a 100-page document was found, which was correspondence between Tobias and his new girlfriend. He wrote about the night Simone disappeared. The exact contents of the letters are not known. The police are not giving up their search for further clues. In 2014, the Bavarian State Criminal Police Office offered a reward of 10,000 euros for information leading to the resolution of the case. In October 2020, the Australian authorities also offered a reward of 1 million Australian dollars, equivalent to approximately 600,000 euros. Police Chief Scott Tanner emphasized, "We know the truth is out there, and we know there are people withholding it." At the end of 2020, there was renewed movement in the Simone Strobel case. Until now, Tobias, Katrin, and Jens Martin have continued to be classified as suspects by the Australian authorities. However, in November, it was announced that one of the people traveling with them would no longer be classified as a suspect but as a witness. Detective Inspector Grant Erickson described this as an interesting development in an interview with the Northern Star newspaper. It was also announced that new DNA tests would be carried out using improved technology and that all evidence would be re-examined. This has allegedly already led to new evidence. This evidence is not available to the public. However, due to the updated evidence, a new hearing was scheduled to take place in Lismore on February 15, 2021. Unfortunately, for reasons that were not officially disclosed, the hearing had to be postponed to an as-yet unknown date just a few days before it was due to take place. Although Tobias once claimed that he would never return to Australia, he now lives there with his Australian wife. He has changed his name. He only commented briefly on the allegations once in an interview. He said that there had never been an argument in the pub and that he had only argued with Katrin at the campsite. He said that he might have called Simone a stupid cow once, but that he was sorry if that was really the case. He said he had nothing to do with Simone's death. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Simone's parents took down the photos of Simone and Tobias smiling happily at the camera a long time ago. They couldn't bear to look at them every day. Nevertheless, they think of their daughter every day and fervently hope that one day there will be enough evidence to solve the mystery of her death. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If so, please leave a like, comment, and/or subscribe. With just a little effort, you can greatly support this channel and help drive the YouTube algorithm so that the video can potentially be recommended to people who haven't subscribed to Insolito yet. Other than that, there's not much else to say. I wish you a good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're watching the video, and hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, ciao everyone.